was that? AC/DC. You know, the opening lines to Hell's Bells once inspired Mark Carney. That was back in the day when he played on Harvard University's hockey team. Today, he's got little time for the old games. 46, he's the youngest ever governor of the Bank of Canada. He's in charge of our central bank at a time when economies around the world aren't just staggering, they're dying. When Canada's largest trading partner is years away from normalizing. But throughout the meltdown, Carney has been a steady hand, working to help keep our economy stable. Now, financial experts say when Carney talks, big investment bankers, the people responsible for the crisis, well, they listen, because he knows how to speak their language, and so he should. After all, he was one of them. For more than a decade, Mark worked as an investment banker for Goldman Sachs. Now he's on the other side, trying to manage the chaos created by those in his former profession. And after delivering a few home truths to his former colleagues,
you've had a big increase in the ratio of CEO earnings to workers on the shop floor. And then on top of that, a financial crisis.
Not your typical soundbite from a central banker. On top of that, Mark's just taken an additional job. He's the head of the Financial Stability Board, which is an international body meant to monitor the global banking system. It puts him in a good position to address the big questions facing the world economy, like what do you do about the European debt crisis and the financial chaos? Is it set to end anytime soon? But he might need a different AC/DC tune to give him a little tick. Please welcome to the program the Governor, Mark Carney.
Thanks, George. How are you?
I take personal delight in knowing that we can have a governor of a Bank of Canada and introduce him with AC/DC songs.
Well,
that's incredible.
I'm not surprised. Now, George, I have something for you.
Do you have it?
Actually, I have something for you.
So we have talked on the show about this new currency, the new $100 bill. I want to see it. I know
this is also groundbreaking. Today we're launching the new 100. And I'd like to give it to you, George. This is, it's made out of polymer material.
Wow. Okay, I'm going to trade you for an actual 100.
Yeah, you 60. Give me, yeah.
This is
60,
not,
80.
By the way.
This was going to be hush money.
Yeah, this is not taxpayer money. I won this at the track, fair and square. Woodbine. There you go, buddy.
All right, there you go.
Oh, that feels so weird, man.
It is weird. Now, this is the hush money, actually. I'm going to pay you to take it easy on it. Because I know you only had 100 from the track.
That's right.
But,
I lost the rest.
Just very quickly, this is out as of today in all banks, and you'll see them circulating. Yep. The key is it's tougher to counterfeit. It is much more economical. It's going to last 2.5, 3 times longer than the existing notes, and it's greener. This will be the first banknote that we can recycle, and we will here in Canada.
Recycling, also known as laundering. It's a way. It's very slippery, though. Very slippery. Easy come, easy go. Okay, so thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
As you know, the economy is what it is. The conversation kind of dominates the news. You're asking countries and organizations that don't love regulation to kind of step up and put a lot of regulation in. Have you been going out there lobbying on behalf of this?
We lobbied on behalf of that, and actually we got that put in place in global regulation. So that's going to happen in all countries starting from 2015. That's good news. So the global system is becoming more Canadian. But even the Canadian system has to change, and this is one of the key objectives here, is to make banking, to make finance like any other industry. You know, if your ratings drop, God forbid, and they're probably dropping right now as I speak, but if your
Dude, I got my $100, so I don't care.
If your ratings drop, you know, it has consequences. If you run a small business, if you run a family farm, if you make a mistake, you'll go out of business. You run a large bank, you have to be rescued because you'll have such bigger impacts on the rest of the system. That doesn't make sense. And so there's a variety of things that are being put in place, being designed so that banking can be like any other business. If you succeed, you get rewarded, but if you fail, your institution fails, and the rest of the economy continues to go on.
So you're saying no bailouts?
I'm saying no bailouts. That's the objective, ending too big to fail.
And yeah, too big to fail is such a bizarre concept. Watching those big companies be too big to fail and be saved, and then watching all these people, especially in America, lose their homes. Look at Greece and Italy and Spain and other countries, like facing this stuff. Everybody's too big to fail except for the individual. They won't bail out the individual. So do you actually think that you can change the culture? Because if you watch Inside Job, a lot of those same guys. Did you watch the movie? Did you like that movie?
I didn't see the movie. I saw the trailer. The trailer was painful enough.
Are you hesitating to see it just because it might be too close to home?
No, I watched. There's so much of this stuff I can only watch. I watched. I saw Too Big to Fail. How's that?
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. Okay. So the idea is that you actually have to tell people, listen, you big companies have to fail.
but we keep getting told that if they fail, the rest of the country will collapse with it. Is that true? Are these companies actually too big to fail?
It was, in my opinion, it was absolutely the case that the U.S. particularly had to save entities in 2008. And we saw it from not saving Lehman, what happened to the global economy after Lehman failed. But that's got to change. And so what changes is that you make shareholders bear the brunt, you make all the debt holders, private individuals, private institutions who provided debt to banks, that they should bear the brunt, they should become shareholders if the shareholders get wiped out. We change the way the markets trade so that the actual trading goes on. I mean, the stock exchange doesn't go down because GM goes into bankruptcy. But the way the bond market works and other financial markets works do go down if a major bank is on the brink. And that's got to change. And so look, it's boring, it's techie, but it's incredibly important, and that's what we're working on. You referenced the FSB. That's one of the key things we're trying to do there.
What's the mandate of that particular organization? Because it's so new.
It is new. It's to do a couple of things. One is to change the rules so the system as a whole is more resilient. So exactly what we just talked about. If a big global bank fails, the system goes on. That company goes away. Secondly, it's to maintain a measure of competition. So we all get financial services at reasonable prices, and we all have access to capital. And so we design the rules. We basically design rules that all countries agree to apply, and that leads to the second thing we do, which is try to make sure that everybody does apply those rules. You know, in Canada, we go to these meetings, we agree to these rules, we're going to come back and we're going to do them, but we don't want to be the only people that do them, because as we learned in 2008, if the Americans, if the British, if others don't do these things, we suffer the consequences. Not quite as bad as they do, but we certainly had a difficult recession here.
What do you think about the Occupy movement and how it's built?
The issue is there's some pretty cold, hard facts around unemployment, but they're just statistics, and so until you actually see the manifestation, it's not there. The situation in Canada is quite different from the United States in terms of the length of unemployment. You know, 40% of American unemployed are long-term unemployed. That's not the case in Canada. It's in the teens. It's still, you know, not great, but it's nowhere near the same amount. We've more than recovered all the jobs that we lost in the recession, 250,000 more. Americans aren't even close. And so there's big differences between the way the Canadian economy has performed and the way the Americans had. The one thing that we can work on as a central bank is what we talked about, is the too big to fail issue.
So is this about, like, lessening our relationship with the United States economically?
It's about enhancing our relationship with others. I get paid for thinking of ways to say it.
So the stuff that's happening in Europe right now, what kind of impact is it going to have on Canada directly? Greece, Italy, Spain?
Yeah, directly, it's relatively modest because we don't have those tight trade ties, but it will have an impact. It is having an impact through financial conditions. It's making things tougher. European banks have to shed assets. They're selling things off. That means Canadian banks, American banks, other banks step in, buy those assets. But as they buy those assets, they're not necessarily lending to businesses in North America. Now, the good news is Canadian banks are so strong that they can do both. It's less true for American banks, and so it has a knock-on effect on Canada through that channel. And the other issue is just confidence. The fact that you invite me on your show and we're even talking about these issues cannot be confidence-enhancing to the people sitting out there.
Did your college roommate was Peter Chiarelli from the Bruins?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yep.
He won a Stanley Cup. Did you guys make a bet like, hey, I would be in public office before you win a Stanley Cup, or how'd that work?
I thought he might give me my last shot at the NHL once he became GM, but apparently Tim Thomas was a little better.
You were a pretty good player, though, weren't you?
I was okay. I opened the gate for a lot of very good hockey players. I was a backup goalie, so I'll be honest.
Did you have a weakness? Was it your glove hand?
No, my glove hand was okay. Stick side low.
There you go.
There you go.
Now
you know.
What lessons from hockey could you apply to your current job?
Yeah, you know, preparation. I mean, it's slightly reactive. I think goaltending is reactive. You can't. It's funny, you know, the AC/DC song, which was the warm-up song when I played hockey, isn't a great song for a goalie because it's an aggressive song. You want to get out and do something, but as a goalie, you have to react to circumstances, right? You can't make the play, and so by and large, central banking is like that. You're reacting to circumstances. You're trying to anticipate, but during a financial crisis, during a situation like we're in, you're a little more proactive. It crosses beyond just being waiting for the shot.
You think there'll be a time when you run for public office as a politician?
As a goaltender? No, no. Look, I've got it's an honor to do this job, and I'm barely halfway through my term, and there's a lot to do, as we've been talking about. So I'll keep doing that.
You couldn't see yourself down the road running for public office?
I would like to survive to the end of my term as my main objective.
Also, by the way, not a no. The governor of the Bank of Canada and the head of the Financial Stability Board, Mark Carney. The Bank of Canada. He's in charge of our central bank at a time when economies around the world aren't just staggering, they're dying, when Canada's largest trading partner is years away from normalizing. But throughout the meltdown, Carney has been a steady hand, working to help keep our economy stable. Now, financial experts say when Carney talks, big investment bankers, the people responsible for the crisis, well, they listen.
On top of that, a financial crisis.
Not your typical soundbite from a central banker. On top of that, Mark's just taken an additional job. He's the head of the Financial Stability Board, which is an international body meant to monitor the global banking system. It puts him in a good position to address the big questions facing the world economy, like what do you do about the European debt crisis and the financial chaos? Is it set to end anytime soon? But he might need a different ACD because he knows how to speak their language, and so he should. After all, he was one of them. For more than a decade, Mark worked as an investment banker for Goldman Sachs. Now he's on the other side, trying to manage the chaos created by those in his former profession. And after delivering a few home truths to his former colleagues,
we've had a big increase in the ratio of CEO earnings to workers on the shop floor. And then on
how good is that? AC/DC, you know, the opening lines to Hell's Bells once inspired Mark Carney. That was back in the day when he played on Harvard University's hockey team. Today, he's got little time for the old games. At 46, he's the youngest ever governor. DC tune to give him a little tick. Please welcome to the program the governor, Mark Carney.
Thanks, man. How are you? I take personal delight in knowing that we can have a governor of a bank